HaWaH, glad you're here today. We're talking about Deuteronomy 28, insane asylums, or mental asylums. Alright. Most people familiar with Deuteronomy 28 and the curses and the blessings, right? I'm going to go over a few of them. And we're going to see if we can identify some of these curses today with these asylums. Alright. I'm going to start with verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if you will not hearken unto the voice of HaWaH, to God to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command you this day, that all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. Alright. Hold on 1 second. Freezing on me. Every time I want to get on it, I want to freeze up. Alright. Bring it back. Alright, let's go down to verse 28. HaWaH shall smite you with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. Alright, this is the main one I want to focus on today. HaWaH shall smite you with madness and blindness and astonishment of hearts. Alright, keep all these in mind. We're going to go to 29. And you shall grope at noonday, as the blind gropes in darkness, and you shall not prosper in your ways, and you shall be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save you. I'm not going to do all of them, but I'm going to do a few of them. Verse 34. So that you shall be mad for the sight of your eyes, which you shall see. Verse 37. And you shall become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither HaWaH shall lead you. Verse 41. And you shall beget sons and daughters, but you shall not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Verse 43. The stranger that is within you shall get up above you very high, and you shall come down very low. Alright, 44 through 50. He shall lend to you, and you shall not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you shall be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon you, and shall pursue you, and overtake you, till you be destroyed, because you hearken not unto the voice of HaWaH, to guard his commandments and his statutes which he commanded you. And they shall be upon you for a sign, and for a wonder, and upon your seed forever. 47. Because you serve not HaWaH with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. Therefore you shall serve your enemies, which HaWaH shall send against you in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon your neck until he has destroyed you. 49. HaWaH shall bring a nation against you from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies, a nation whose tongue you shall not understand. And 50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. I keep all those in mind now. We're gonna get a quick video in before we get started. Alright, let's roll.
Of course, we all see these people out there that are a little bit crazy at the moment, and they're looking at the world and they're screaming and they're gluing their hands to the racetracks and throwing soup at paintings and God knows what, dressing up as women uh, and where did that all start, right? As we know, that they're the crazy people, right? They're not the normal ones. But we have this phenomena of lunatic asylums. Okay, this is a lunatic asylum. And as you can see, it's a mud flutter. You can see all these windows at the bottom that have been bricked in. It's got the belfry on the top, right? The tower, the dome, copper dome, of course, right? Because it's a lunatic asylum. This is how you build them, and this is apart from the fact that these are everywhere as well, and they're always massive. They've always got all these features that just does not belong on a lunatic asylum. Like this is a lunatic asylum. Seriously. I think this is where they send the insane politicians. But I mean, look at that, right? Are you serious? And so it's just such a giveaway that this was not built as an asylum, which means these were empty buildings that were found, and that because of their size and everything, they were useful to lock up the people who didn't agree with the way that the rulers wanted to take this realm, right? They didn't agree with the working in factories 12 hours a day and doing what you're told and all this. So they locked them up in these places, lunatic asylums. And these again, look at this, look at this. This is, and they want us to believe this will be the story that this was built as a lunatic asylum. I mean, what is that? Is that a castle or is it a cathedral? Or is it a cathedral? Is that how I say it? Look over here. I can't zoom in, unfortunately, but you can kind of see what's going on here with this doorway. I mean, the only thing lunatic about this is building buildings like this as lunatic asylums. Look at this. Looks like it needs a bit of repair, but I mean, seriously. Look at this is what we find everywhere. This is again another mud flutter. It's buildings like this that are the lunatic asylums. The one in Perth, in Fremantle, it's massive. It's so big, and of course they've over the years they've defacaded it, so now it's looking more like a plain brutalist building. But they're all red brickers. They were all these intricate buildings with all the bits, all the antiquity parts, all the features, and they were massive. They were so big. Another mud flutter, right? Bell towers, spires for a lunatic asylum. I mean, look at the size of these places. I mean, and it just sort of shows you the mentality of these people who wish to rule us, right? Like they find these huge, magnificent buildings, and the best use they've got, to that will help them out and their plans is to, to use them as jails, basically, right? I mean, because that's all they
Mm-hmm.
were. They were just jails for people that they couldn't, put a crime against, that they
Mm.
couldn't arrest. They just say, well, they're crazy. Then you don't need to arrest them, right? You just throw them in. That one's, well, it's actually pretty big, right? It's actually 3 stories there, but not as big as most of them. Okay, so lots of abandoned lunatic asylums as well, like lots, which is another thing, right? Why did they go out of use? Why did they need them for so big? Why were there so many lunatics, but for just such a short time? What was the mental stress they were under? I mean, look at this. Look at this half dome here. It looks like it's an old observatory up there. I mean, uh, built to house lunatics. It's a lunacy, I tell you. Look, see, old world buildings. Oh, they've left the chair. That's where the lunatic sits, and that's where the paid lunatic with the white sits, and they both converse and try and tell each other that the other one is crazy. Quite interesting. Oh, I guess that's so people couldn't jump off the stairs. Gosh, I mean, look at these. They're all the same. Look at them. They're just look, and just like I said, just left to right. They've done their job. Done their job as the jail. I mean, look at the size of that. And I mean, what's this for? Is this for the crazy person who so can go and yell at night time at the moon? I mean, how would they explain that? So there you go, abandoned asylums. So this is actually from a book by Matt van der Velde. So there you go. And I think these are all internals. So he's one. Look at the lunatic asylum. What? Telling me that's not Hogwarts. Look at this massive dome. It's all just falling apart though. I wish I could zoom in. Look at that. You can see all the brickwork of how they installed these portal windows. Can you see there's a circle of bricks around there? Oh my God.
Mm.
And just in case you weren't inspired enough, I mean, look at the size of that tower. Seriously. Compared to, this is a what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories to here. Like, can you imagine the structure they would have to build in here to support that? That thing would have to go be basically hooked straight in and under the ground so it didn't fall over and take the building with it. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount of engineering, right, and architecture. I mean, look how many of them are abandoned. Here's another one. Look at this, looking like, it's a parliamentary building. Look at that, 1, 2, 3 belfries, bell towers, all with domes. How do they explain this, right? I mean, and look at the buildings they chose. Oh my God. But these are all abandoned, or all at least not used anymore as lunatic asylums. Look at the brickwork up here. So this is the question, right? They tell us all built 1800s to house lunatics. I'm not sure if that's a story of all of them. No doubt some they say they built and then repurposed, but most of them, to get their narrative, to keep that up to date, they would have to say that they were built for to be a lunatic asylum. This is another mud flutter. And then the story we get, of the lunatics who was going in there, it was all pretty much mothers, right? When you really look into it, it was pretty much just um, women who either got pregnant when they were young, or who were married with children and their husbands died or left them, and they became these sort of destitute women. They just throw them in these places and lock them up. And no doubt, we know they also took their kids, right, which turned into the orphans, which then got shipped around the realm. But look, this is a castle. Look at this
Mm.
lunatic asylum. All right, so there we go. Now this is just to show you what went on, right? I mean, we know. Shows a few here. Look at this. Look at the size of this, right? 1790s. yeah, I was just going to show you these crazy people, right? They were just getting these people who weren't handling things very well, and no doubt it's because of the trauma they'd been put through. Right? These are probably all orphans, and yeah, they just threw them into these places. You know, we have all these movies like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is how they were. You know, they didn't look after them at all. You can see they all look like they're starving, and they were most probably doing experiments on them. Because the other thing about lunatic asylums is they tend to be haunted buildings now, which means what was going on and what is haunting. Because a lot of these places as well, they have these, you know, laboratory type things, right? They tell us it's all about, you know, doctors and mental health, but we know that they were doing experiments on them, right? All this shock treatment and different drugs. Look at this, man. This is inside an asylum. But I just wanted to show you. See here again, right? All the nurses and that. This is how you help crazy people. You hold them down and shove shit down their throat. Look at this dude. Is that a plunger on his head? I don't know, but no doubt. I don't know if that looks like the death chair, but I mean it's at least some kind of electric shock, right? He's not looking too happy about it. Schools as well. This is another thing. Schools as well, like were a lot of them were just orphanages, and hospitals. A lot of them were asylums, right? Just with different names. Ah, the good old straitjacket. Ward for females. Oh, that's another thing they did is they always separated the males from the females. Look at these. She's half naked in a straitjacket, and she looks fully naked. God, I don't know what's going on with that body. It looks like ET. So we have these, you know, orphans, right? And then the ones who don't, you know, they all get thrown into to be workers, and the ones who don't take it well get thrown into asylums, right? And then basically used as experiments by the looks of it. And then, you know, we know what goes on, what we've learned in the last couple of years. So this is probably what was going on with all these unfortunate people.
Mm. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. All right, we back. I had left something. I had to go get that. Yeah. All right. So that was a cool little video to show you what's going on with these asylums, right? Now, I got a book that we're gonna get into. That's like around the year 1815. Well, let's see what was going on around that time. All right, these are the historical events for the year 1815. So, January 3rd, Australia, United Kingdom, and France form a secret defense alliance against Prussia and Russia. January 8th, War of 1812, Battle of New Orleans, Andrew Jackson leads United States of America forces in victory over British. January 13th, War of 1812, British Empire calls British troops capture Battle of Fort Peter. Alright. And more of the War 1812. Alright, you got Napoleon going around. Napoleon Bonaparte escapes from Elba, returns to France. Alright, some more Napoleon stuff going on. Napolitan War. Alright. Mm. So quite a few things going on. Battle of Waterloo. Napoleonic Wars. Alright, you see what's going on around 1800s, right? Early 1815. Alright. Now this is right after the Great Comet, Tecumseh's Comet, they call it, right? Which happened around 1811. All right, the Great Comet of 1811 is a comet that was visible to the naked eye for around 260 days, the longest recorded period of visibility until the appearance of Comet Haley Bop in 1997. But yeah, big shout out to Nine Spiral. If you've been over there on his channel, you'll know about these comets, right? You'll know these comets, these meteors, what you would call big flying dragons, right? What they call shooting stars. Yeah, shout out to Nine Spiral, man. He's done a lot of good work on those comments, and he's touched on some of these old world buildings and things like that too. But yeah, we'll see what's going on with this comet. It says the Great Comet of 1811 was thought to have an exceptionally large coma, perhaps reaching over 1 million miles across, 50% larger than the sun. The comet's nucleus was later estimated at 30 to 40 kilometers in diameter. This was huge. Alright? You can see it for 260 days. It says it was visible during the New Madrid earthquakes. Alright? A report on the first steamship to descend the Ohio River as it approached the confluence with the Mississippi River states December 18th, 1811, the anniversary of this day. The people of Cairo, alright, Illinois, or Misraim, in its vicinity should never forget. Yeah, man. Alright, this was happening for 260 days, man. This comet was flying around. Alright, the appearance of the comet was interpreted by natives as a vindication of Shawnee military leader Tecumseh's words. His name was translated as shooting star, and the comet was seen as an omen during his most unsuccessful efforts that year to bring southern tribes into his pan-Native American alliance. Okay, let's just say American. Alright, indigenous American. Alright, but yeah, that was it, man. After Tecumseh did what he did, that was like the last great stand. Alright, this is when the takeover started happening, man. In the early 1800s. Let's get a couple quotes from Tecumseh. So, you see how they got him looking, right? Alright, this is just on this site, but you know, you see what they got going on with them, right? Alright, what Tecumseh was talking about. Because he wasn't with it. No tribe has the right to sell even to each other, much less to strangers. Sell a country. Why not sell the air, the great sea, as well as the earth? Didn't the Great Spirit make them all for the use of his children? The only way to stop this evil is for the red man to unite in claiming a common and equal right in the land as it was first, and should be now, for it was never divided. We gave them forest-clad mountains and valleys full of game. And in return, what did they give our warriors and our women? Rum, trinkets, and a grave. Yeah, Tecumseh was that dude. When your time comes to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with fear of death, so that when their time comes, they weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives over again in a different way. Sing your death song and die like a hero going home. We talk about Trill, man. Young boys don't know nothing about Trill today. This is Trill. Alright. From my tribe I take nothing. I am the maker of my own fortune. When you rise in the morning, give thanks for the light, for your life, for your strength. Give thanks for your food and for the joy of living. If you see no reason to give thanks, the fault lies in yourself. Alright, let's get one more. A single twig breaks, but the bundle of twigs is strong. Tecumseh was powerful, man. Alright. And some believe that's Elijah. That was prophesied in what book is that? Malachi? To come back? But yeah, I mean, you know, so it looks like it might could be. But yeah. But yeah, this image they got right here. Let's zoom in if we can. Can't really tell with that one, huh? But I got a little source right here. Alright. And this is from early 1800s. Hold on. There we go. Alright. It's called A Star in the West. Alright. So the first edition was in 1815. Alright, that's why I went ahead and looked up what was going on around that time period. But this right here, A Star in the West, or a humble attempt to discover the long lost 10 tribes of Israel, preparatory to their return to their beloved city, Jerusalem, by Elias Boudinot. I probably said that wrong. But I'm just going to get a little bit out of this book right quick. Let's see, get down to the page. Alright, here we go. Hold on, man. Where's that? Here we go. Here we go. Okay. A Star in the West. Alright, we're going to get the last two chapters. They real quick. Alright. This is chapter 11. Separation of the Indian woman. Alright. The last remarkable fact to be mentioned is the constant practice of the Indian nations in the separation of their women on certain occasions. The southern Indians obliged their women in their lunar retreats to build small huts at a considerable distance from their dwelling houses, as they imagined to be sufficient, where they are, where they arc, where they are obliged to stay, at the risk of their lives, should they be known to violate this ancient law. They must answer for every misfortune that the people should meet with. Among the Indians on the northwest of the Ohio, the conduct of the woman seems perfectly agreeable, as far as circumstances will permit, to the law of Moses. A young woman, at the first change in her circumstances, immediately separates herself from the rest. So this is talking about observations, right, of these Indian women. All right, and in the northwest of Ohio. Okay, all right. Separate herself from the rest in a hut made at some distance from the dwelling houses, and remains there during the whole time of her malady, or 7 days. Now, if you know scripture, you know during the woman's time of the month, she's supposed to be separated, right, for 7 days. All right, this is exactly what they were still doing. All right, over there with these Ohio Indians. The person who brings her victuals is very careful not to touch her, and so cautious is she herself of touching her own food with her hands that she makes use of a sharpened stick instead of a fork with which to take up her venison, and a small ladle or spoon for her other food. When the 7 days are ended, she bathes herself in water, washes all her clothes, and cleanses the vessels she has made use of, such as are made of wood. She scalds and cleans with lye made of wood ashes, and such as are made of earth or iron she purifies by putting into the fire. She then returns to her father's house, and is after this looked upon fit for marriage, but not before. Alright, of Muskogee, woman delivered of a child is separated in like manner for 3 moons, or 84 days. Cross Week Song, the once Indian town in New Jersey, signifies the house of separation. By the Levitical law, a woman was to be separated and unclean 40 days for a man child, and 80 days for a female child. From which law alone it appears that the Indians could have adopted this extraordinary custom, as they must have done all their numerous laws of purity, and more especially as some of the nations observe the like distinction between male and female children. The young women at our people's first coming among them were very modest and shamefaced. Both young and old women would be highly offended at indecent expressions unless corrupted by drink. They were very neat and cleanly, except in some instances when they neglected themselves. All right. Conclusion, chapter 12. Having thus gone through with the collection of facts that has taken much time, great attention, and strict inquiry, in order to prevent the writer from being deceived herself, on his being the innocent cause of deceiving others, he is now brought to draw some conclusions from the whole taken together. On a subject like this, where there is so much to hope and so much to fear, he would use great modesty and diffidence He would avoid all dogmatical assertions or unreasonable confidence in anything that he has collected or any observations he has made, as he considers this a subject for the exercise of wisdom, research, inquiry, and mature reflection. But nevertheless, while he uses every necessary precaution and wishes perfect freedom of inquiry on the best evidence, yet he earnestly solicits the reader to keep in mind that his principal design in these labors has been to invite and tempt the learned and the industrious as far as they can obtain opportunities to inquire further into this important and useful subject. What could possibly bring greater declarative glory to God, or tend more essentially to affect and rouse the nations of the earth with a deeper sense of the certainty of the prophetic declarations of the Holy Scriptures, and thus call their attention to the truth of divine revelation, than a full discovery that these wandering nations of Indians are the long lost tribes of Israel. Alright? But kept under the special protection of Almighty God, though despised by all mankind, for more than 2,000 years separated from and unknown to the civilized world, thus wonderfully brought to the knowledge of their fellow men, they may be miraculously prepared for instruction and stand ready at the appointed time when God shall raise the signal to the nations of Europe to be restored to the land and country of their fathers, and to the Mount Zion, the city of David, their great king and head, and this indirect, positive, and literal fulfillment of the numerous promises of the Most High, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the pious progenitors and founders, near 4,000 years ago. Would not such an event be the most ample mean of publishing all important facts of both of the Old, never mind the New Testament, to all the nations of the earth? Alright, we Old Testament only over here. Alright. That the Most High of Israel is a God of truth and righteousness, and that whom he loves unto the end. They will be convinced that his all-seeing eye had been opened upon them in all their wanderings, under all their suffering, and that he had never forsaken them, but he had shown his watchful providence over them, and that in the later day it shall come to pass that the mountain of HaWaH's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, let us go up to the mountain of the Most High, to the house of the Most High of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of HaWaH from Jerusalem. That's Isaiah, what, chapter 2? Or chapter, what chapter is that, 2? 1 and 3? Alright, I think that's also in Joel, chapter 2. But yeah, there you go, man. These Indians are who? Not all of them, but some of them. Long lost tribes of Israel. Alright? Just so you know. Now we're going to go into some books. And they're going to be mixing in Africans and Negroes. Alright? But we know, all right, and this is just one instance where it says, in the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes. Alright, let's not get it twisted, okay? He's the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. He was progenitor of Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites, but not the Negroes, okay? All of this is important to know, okay? Alright, remember Jeremiah 9:16, I will scatter them also among the heathen, whom neither their nor their fathers have known, and I will send a sword after them till I have consumed them. Deuteronomy 28:37, which we already got. And thou shalt become astonishment, a proverb, a byword among all nations, whether the Most High shall lead thee. Check this out. Africans come from Africa. Chinese come from China, they say. Europeans come from Europe. Russians from Russia. Japanese and Japan. Eastern Indians from India. But what about the Negro? Where he come from? Alright? We're gonna roll through it, alright? Oh, while we on the subject of Zion, right? Let's get it from I played around with Chat GPT a little bit, and I got him to type up a whole story. Alright, let me see. And this gonna break it down before we get started. Cause we still on the intro. But the curtains, this is the story. The curtains fall over Zion. Alright, a Scroll Keeper's Chronicle told a story phone tuned in 22 hertz. That dragonfly is still here vibrating inside the old brick wards. Before the storm, alright, this is a story that ChatGPT put together, right? I had to play with it. Alright, sometimes you gotta beat the truth out of it a little bit. But this is the story put together. It said, long before a star flag fluttered over the continent, the Mississippi was the Nahar Parel, the Great Lakes were Galil, and the mountain cities rang with the shofar. Children of Israel, today labeled black or Indian, till terraces from Florida to the falls of the Ohio. Alright, I didn't write none of this. Old men recited Deuteronomy in a tongue now called Creek and Choctaw. Alright, the twin Thunderbirds of Resistance. You got Dragon Canoe, Chickamauga, Cherokee War Chief rose first from 1777 until his death in 1792. He fought every treaty that tried to peel the Blue Ridge from the Covenant people. White settlers call him the Savage Napoleon, they say. Then you got Tecumseh, who we just talked about, of the Shawnee, lit the second beacon between 1810 and 1813. He welded a northern confederacy and carried the calumet from Lake Erie to the Gulf, pleading, stand as one body. He fell at the Battle of Thames in 1813. The League shattered the same day. These two Thunderbirds marked the last great open field stand of Israel in the East. Yet their deaths were only the first snap of the prophecy's whip. The Quiet Conquest from 1815 to 1830. The War of 1812 ended. Treaties restored pre-war borders, but the U.S. Army remained mobilized on the frontier. White militias drained into the freshly surveyed Northwest and Old Southwest. Survey chains cut through burial mounds. Land offices sold covenant soil for pennies an acre. To keep the paper trail clean, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act in 1830. Wagons rolled. The people marched under guard. Newspapers cheered civilization. Yet something darker was prepared for those who would not forget. Something darker was prepared for those who would not forget. Brick palaces of forgetting. 1833 to 1890, the Worcester Insane Asylum. 1833, first purpose-built state asylum is Ledger's show. 164 admissions the first year. Half-labeled melancholy Negro/Indian. Many seized straight from county jails. Alright, you paying attention? The Kirkbride Plan, 1848, Dr. Thomas Kirkbride's manual demanded mile-long bat-wing hospitals, 432 feet per wing in several early blueprints. Was this an accident or echo of the Davidic tuning? By 1890, nearly 300 such palaces dotted America. Their limestone fronts looked like old world fortresses. Locals whispered Tartarian. Inside, attendants enforced moral treatment, silent meals, farm labor, cold water tubs. And if a patient spoke of mounds, Hebrew names, or Tecumseh, solitary confinement. So if you brought up Tecumseh's name, that's solitary confinement. Alright, how the asylums wove the curse in Deuteronomy 28. How did that? Prophetic line hospital practice. You shall be mad for the sight of your eyes. Remember, we just read that. Patients shown phrenology. Charts proving Negro inferiority. Any protest recorded as dementia. Your sons and daughters shall be given to another people. Remember? Children declared feeble-minded. Removed to distant training schools. Your name shall become a proverb in admission books. Alright? Kufi, Sambo, Crazy Engine. Labels replacing clan surnames. Some inmates remembered Dragon Canoe's war cry or Tecumseh's covenant speech. Night orderlies wrote religious mania in the margin and tightened the straps. Aftermath and echo. By 1910, the last wagon trains of colored insane rolled into places like Crownsville. That's Maryland's hospital for the Negro insane. Jim Crow's finishing school. Segregated wings filled the labor gap left when plantations collapsed. Work gangs laid rail spurs, fired brick kilns, harvested asylum farms. Unpaid, unseen, unremembered. Yet at dusk, the brick corridors still hummed. Survivors testified that a low A-note, 432 hertz, vibrated the arches, and some reclaimed their names in resonance, whispering HaWaH beneath the clatter of keys. So when did the white man take over? Not overnight, not in a single battle. The seizure unfolded in 3 strokes. In the 1790s, Dragon Canoe's death, southern Israel's shield falls. 1813, Tecumseh's death, the Northern Confederacy broken. War of 1812, garrisons stay on. 1830 to 1890, legal tools removal, asylum codes. Finish the conquest by erasing memory, not just occupying land. Close the scroll and hold it to your ear. The clay tablet still sing the bass line of Daweed. The palaces of forgetting crumble, but the covenant hum. Indoors, those who tune their heart to 42 hertz will hear the rivers speak the old names again. Alright, nice little cool little story right there. Cool little story. Alright. So these asylums were used for erasing memory. Alright. Erasing memory. They called you insane. Lunatic. Alright. This is where they did the damage. In these asylums, man. And we gonna get some sources talking about it. We just read this right. Yeah, we just read this. Star in the West. Okay. Alright. Hold on. I gotta find a good one first. Here we go. Alright, this is coming from Princeton University. Alright. Judith Weisenfeld explores psychiatry, race, and religion in the post-Civil War era. Alright, this is a good one here, y'all. Alright, and I won't get comfy for this one. Let's see. Let's start right here. In 1833. In 1883, a small news item appeared in the Richmond Dispatch. Mary Judah, what a name, Mary Judah, colored, they say, was charged with being disorderly and using profane language on the street and fined $2.50. Although the fine was modest compared to the $20 speeding ticket given to the driver of a horse-drawn buggy, it was probably a significant sum for Judah, a 21-year-old domestic servant. She paid the fine, but 2 years later found herself in court again. This time she faced a new charge, lunacy. Alright, try to say she was crazy. Alright. At her hearing, white physician James Beale testified that the defendant was noisy, filthy, and quarrelsome. What was more, Beale said, Judah claimed she was the victim of supernatural forces. She'd been tricked or conjured by someone who meant her harm. The all-white panel of 3 judges declared Judah insane due to the religious excitement and committed her to Virginia's Central State Hospital for the colored insane. Although Judah may not have deserved the diagnosis, she was discharged within 2 years. Her case was by no means unique. In the decades following the Civil War, the number of African Americans, so-called, committed to asylums in the South increased significantly. By some accounts, the number of colored insane in the United States rose tenfold from 1850 to 1890. The cause of this apparent upsurge in mental instability was, prominent white Southern psychiatrists of the day claimed, that African Americans were by nature unsuitable for freedom. See that? You was unsuitable for freedom. Judith Weisenfeld, a historian of religion at Princeton, has been tracing the stories of African Americans like Judah and others declared insane over the century following emancipation. Weisenfeld's research tracks the parallel rise in psychiatry as a field of science and the rise in the discipline's racialized theories about African Americans, theories that help fuel continued subjugation after the end of slavery. Her work reveals that racialized theories persisted among influential white psychiatrists well into the 20th century. What is more, our national conversation about the cause of racial disparities in the C-19 victims suggests that these theories likely influence us still. Alright? These theories still influence us. At the same time that psychiatry was emerging as a distinct medical specialty in the mid 1800s, physicians were lending medical authority to the idea that black people were unfit for freedom, said Weisenfeld. The Agate Brown and George L. Collard, professor of religion and chair of Department of Religion, who was writing a book on the topic with support from a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. That was one of the things that was most striking to me. Many respected the mid 19th century psychiatric journals promoted the idea of African Americans' racial predisposition to emotional states and superstitions, and thus to mental illness. J.D. Roberts, a physician at North Carolina's Eastern Asylum for the Colored, wrote in the North Carolina Medical Journey in 1883 that African Americans were superstitious, fearful of hidden dangers, fond of the marvelous and religious to an extent almost approaching fanaticism. This racial predisposition toward religious excitement existed, according to the white doctors, whether the religion was Christianity, Islam, or traditional beliefs with roots in Africa. Alright, see, they keep trying to put you back in Africa. In the post-slavery era, many so-called African Americans increased their participation in various forms of religion, including Pentecostalism, which was also popular with whites and featured divine healing and speaking in tongues. Yeah, I remember when I was growing up, my pastor left the church and went to be a Pentecostal. And ain't nobody know what he was doing. People used to be speaking in tongues all up in church, falling out, all that. Remember all that. In addition, some African Americans engaged in spiritual practices with roots in Africa, including beliefs that combining ingredients and incantations could make potions or talismans with the power to protect, heal, or harm. The reliance on traditional practices known by names such as conjure, voodoo, and root work is perhaps not surprising given that enslaved so-called African Americans had often been denied conventional medical care and sought such remedies to treat real physical and mental suffering. So since they were denied medical care, they went to conjuring up things, voodoo, and root work. Whoa. Whoa. But to the white Southern psychiatrists, Beliefs in supernatural remedies and extreme expressions of Christianity alike fit the racist mindset that the Negro race, here we go, was unable to cope with the challenges of freedom. What? The Negro race was unable to cope with the challenges of freedom, huh? According to this theory, African Americans' uncivilized nature and mental inferiority made them incapable of surviving in a complex society. You see this? Do you see this? This is white Southern psychiatrists believe in this. Early psychiatrists made presumptions about what authentic, reasonable religious practices look like. And some of what African Americans were practicing did not look reasonable to judges, police, and doctors. Weisenfeld said these practices were in some contexts criminalized and certainly stigmatized and marginalized. I mean, yeah, they was doing voodoo and all that, yeah. As a scholar, Weisenfeld views both mainstream and supernatural practices as fitting the definition of religion. Religion is determined by its context, she said, and has political and economic consequences. It is significant that white courts, white medical professionals, white police, and white religious authorities had the power to say what was and what was not religion. Not only did white authority figures educate black religious expression, but they applied the religious excitement standard differently to black versus white mental patients. Both black and white individuals admitted they feared being harmed, poisoned, or plotted against. According to Weisenfeld's research at the Library of Virginia and other archives, yet religious excitement was a top cause of insanity among black patients, but not among white patients. All right, religious excitement was the top cause of insanity. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, you believe in doing all this religious, you're insane. Okay. About 1/4 of the black patients admitted to the colored hospital with Mary Judah in 1885 had religion listed as a factor in their insanity. See that? Religion was the factor of their insanity. Versus 5% of whites admitted to the asylum for whites. So the curses was real, man. Alright? The religion was attached to them being into these asylums and was a factor in their insanity. Alright? Worshipping all these other things and all this religion. Now you gone with madness and you in the madhouse. The cure for these manias and melancholies, as they were called, was a soothing environment far from the travails of civilized life. For whites, this moral therapy, which was adopted widely in the U.S. in the mid 1800s, included hot baths, art classes, and various amusements. However, treatment was not equal. Yeah, so the whites, this was moral therapy for them. Alright? They was getting hot baths, art classes, and amusement. So they was in there having a good time. Alright? But look at them. They don't look like they having a good time. These faces not saying they having a good time. Oh, whoa. She look like she want to go home. Yep, this is pretty much like jail. Black patients were more likely to be prescribed labor in the fields of the institution for men or sewing and washing for women. Patients who demonstrated the ability to work and attend church services might eventually be discharged. See that? So if you attend these church services, you might eventually be discharged. The treatment was labor, Weisenfeld said. It was, how do we make them productive for the larger white society? What? As the 20th century dawned and the field of psychiatry matured, the role of race in the diagnosis of mental instability persisted. Weisenfeld found in 1910 psychiatrist Oral Everts at the Government Hospital for the Insane in Washington, D.C., one of the most prominent asylums in the nation, repeated many of the erroneous, and racist ideas developed decades earlier. As to the religion of the native Africans, see, look at this. Keep trying to make you African. It is but a belief in witchcraft, Everts wrote. Of ethics, he has no conception. During its years of savagery, the race had learned no lessons in emotional control, and what they attained during their few generations of slavery left them unstable. For this reason, we find deterioration in the emotional sphere, most often in early and persistent manifestation. Although the field of psychiatry has since evolved, the national discourse on race and societal fitness retains shadows of these racialized theories, Weisenfeld said. The C-19 pandemic, pandemic, that's why they say panic and pandemonium, everything got a pan in front of it, has provided evidence that beliefs persist about black predispositions to illness, both mental and physical, today. You see what it's saying? The initial public reactions to news that blacks and Hispanics were disproportionately likely to get sick and die from that 19 often focused on supposed physical predispositions and moral weaknesses. What? In fact, the disparity stemmed from a range of socioeconomic determinants of health, including the fact that in many parts of the country, people of color are more likely than whites to work in jobs deemed essential, for working at home is not an option, and are less likely to have paid sick leave and adequate health care. When we first heard black people are more likely to get that 19, the news was often conveyed in a manner to suggest that it was due to something in the bodies of black people. Oh, really? Alright, they had Joe Face as the cover art for that thing. Alright? Weisenfeld said it took a long time for other arguments to come to the fore. I think people fell back quickly on the kind of racial essentialism that I see in psychiatry in a variety of medical specialties in the 19th and early 20th century. A related factor, Weisenfeld said, is that people are quick to cast poverty as a moral failing. People are blamed for being poor, she said. There has been a kind of moral judgment about who gets that thing and why the infection and death rate among people of African, so-called African, descent is higher. And that's certainly similar to in the late 19th and early 20th century. White psychiatrists say that there is something essential that about the black mind that is leading people to become mentally ill. And that slavery protected them from the worst outcomes of this. What? Are you hearing this right now? It says slavery protected them from the worst outcomes of this. It kept them from being mentally ill, huh? A similar attitude pervades the discussion around susceptibility to that thing among people with pre-existing conditions. She said the 19 comorbidity discussion, I think, really connects to that as well. The narrative is that people are diabetic because they lack self-control, and they lack self-control because they're poor, and they're poor because they lack initiative. There's a whole cascade of blame, and with that sensibility, why treat someone? What in the world? What? They lack. They got. They lack initiative, huh? That's why, huh? Hmm. Or did y'all force them into these insane asylums, huh? We gonna get to it. The cascade of blame, Weisenfeld said, legitimizes inaction and reinforces existing systems that keep marginalized groups from claiming the same rights to health as whites. There are ways in which American medicine and broader society have discounted entire populations as not meriting support or even adequate medical care, Weisenfeld said. And I think we saw some of those intersections early in that 19 pandemic. I see parallels between people today and the people I'm finding in the archives of the asylums. Look, there's parallels between the people today and the people finding in the archives of the asylums. Achieving racial equity and justice in mental health care requires that we understand the historical entanglement of ideas about race, religion, and mental normalcy in psychiatry, Weisenfeld said, and I hope my work can help contribute to that. All right. Well, thank you, Miss Weisenfeld, for that. Princeton University. Thank you, man. I feel familiar. I might know this lady. Oh, yeah. Appreciate you, man. We're going to keep it moving. Ain't that something? But yeah. All right. We're going to get a book. We're going to get a book in from my man Jesse Torrey right quick. And we're going to figure out what was going on in these asylums. All right. Jesse Torrey. I'm not sure if this is what he looked like, but he was an observer. He was a Philadelphia physician who gathered first-hand narratives by African Americans. Here we go. African Americans and eyewitness accounts by white observers of slavery and kidnapping. All right, he published these along with personal observations in an early anti-slavery book. So this book is anti-slavery, okay? This is a portraiture of slavery in the United States, 1817. All right. Yep, he's from New York. All right, New Lebanon, New York. Just so happened to be Lebanon, huh? Where he was born. All right, I got the book right here. Mm. All right, let's see where we're gonna start at though. I think we're gonna have to start. Uh, Let me see. You might skip through it a little bit because it is quite a bit of reading. But if you want to know, it's gonna let you know. All right. I'm gonna start right here. I don't know what chapter it is. But let's just go. On the fourth day of December 1815, The day on which the session of Congress commenced, being at the seat of government of the United States, I was preparing to enjoy the first opportunity that had occurred to me of beholding the assembled representatives of the American Republic. As I was about to proceed to the building where the session was open, my agreeable reverie was suddenly interrupted by the voice of a stammering boy, who, as he was coming into the house from the street, exclaimed, "There goes the Georgie men with a drove of niggers chained together, two and two." "What's that?" said I. "I must see." And, going to the door, I just had a distant glimpse of a light covered wagon, followed by a procession of men, women, and children, resembling that of a funeral. I followed them hastily, and as I approached so near as to discover that they were bound together in pairs, some with ropes, and some with iron chains, which I had hereto seen used only for restraining beasts. The involuntary successive heavings of my bosom became irrepressible. This was with me an affection perfectly peculiar to itself, which never having before experienced gave me some surprise. I have since heard an intelligent gentleman from Scotland describe a similar symptom. He affirmed that on his arrival upon the coast of the United States in Chesapeake Bay, his first view of the slaves brought his heart into his throat. I have also been told by a gentleman who holds a seat in the Senate of the United States that a drove of Manasseh slaves was to him an insupportable spectacle, which he generally endeavored to avoid, and by a representative since deceased from one of the slave states who was himself a possessor of slaves, that he never could bear to see slaves Manasseh and fettered with bolts and chains, nor families torn asunder and sold to the slave traders, and wondered how anyone could be so inhuman as to do such acts. Overtaking the caravan just opposite to the old capital, then in a state of ruins from the conflagration by the British Army, I inquired. All right, we're going to skip the side notes. All right. I inquired of one of the drivers, of whom there were two, what part of the country they were taking all these people to. "To Georgia," he replied. "Have you not," said I, "enough such people in that country yet?" "Not quite enough," he said. I found myself incapable of saying more, and was compelled to avert my eyes immediately from the heart-rending scene. Had Stern been present and surveyed, with real instead of imaginary vision, this group of bondmen and bondwomen and bondchildren, with their mute, sad faces veiled with black despair, and heard the chains rattle which encumbered their bodies, and had seen the iron enter their souls, he would again have burst into tears. I walked along some distance before them down Pennsylvania Avenue, and on turning around observed that they had left that street, as if the spirit of Penn had repelled the contact of such a tragedy with his name, and directed their course towards the Potomac Bridge. At the same moment, an African, so called African, passed by, driving a hack, and beholding his brethren, extended his arm toward them and exclaimed, "See there? Ain't that right down murder? Don't you call that right down murder?" On uttering to him indistinctly that I did not know, he renewed his request to be answered, and I replied, "I do not know, but it is murder." These expressions instantly reminded me of the frequency of murders and deaths, not only of slaves, but of white and free black men, resulting from despotic slavery. and particularly from the slave traffic. Several instances of this kind had very recently come to my knowledge from unquestionable sources, and at that moment pressed themselves with peculiar force upon my excited imagination, among which I will recite the following. A slave having escaped from his master in the state of North Carolina, with 2 or 3 years past, was seized and brought back by, by a being who requested by the master to name the reward he should render him for returning the slave, replied that all the compensation he desired with the satisfaction of flogging him. This being granted, the slave was bound to a log and the resounding lash applied until the resentment of his executioner was satiate. The infatuated master then took the ensanguined lash himself and was about to repeat the process of flagellation when death, not then a king of terrors, but a generous benefactor, a friend in need, rescued him from the intended protraction of his excruciating torment. After all, let the balm of compassion, rather than imprecations of divine wrath, be administered to these erring mortals. Their egregious mistake may be traced to the mighty force of example and the deficiency of early religious and moral education. This fact, having before published, must be to many persons already known. Mm. In the state of Pennsylvania, a considerable number of years ago, the proprietor of a furnace took up a black boy, a few years old, and in the presence of his distracted father, wantonly thrust him into the flames and melted metal, where he was instantly consumed. The information of this horrible deed was originally communicated by a respectable citizen of the city of Washington, who formerly resided in the state of Pennsylvania, and it has been further corroborated by another of the city of Philadelphia. Mm. In the state of New Jersey, a female slave of several years ago was bound to a log and scored with the knife in a shocking manner across her back, and the gashes stuffed with salt, after which she was tied to a post in a cellar, where, after suffering 3 days, death kindly terminated her misery. This fact was communicated at Washington by the same gentleman above mentioned. Alright? Alright. This part right here is related to the where we at? Uh a nation of fierce countenance which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young. Alright? And that's why I had to read that part. Yeah, I know I got real right there. Alright. Now we're gonna skip on ahead to the let's see. Yeah, let's skip on ahead to the okay, I only had 2 more pages, but where's the part at? Give me 1 second. Alright, here's a little picture right here. Alright, they got him chained up. Let's see what's going on. Alright. Check this book out, man. This is gonna give you a little information what's going on back there in 1815 and whatnot. Uh, I'm just skipping through it today. Ain't reading it, like that. Where is that? It's page 38. Alright, hold on. Yeah, here we go. Alright. We're gonna skip to this part. Blessed, infatuated Columbia The eyes and the hopes of weeping, admiring nations are upon thee. Suffer not the lamp of public liberty to be smothered and extinguished by the gloomy shroud of private slavery. Dost not thou assume a preeminent distinction among the nations for magnanimity and honor? Does any high minded Christian nation chain her prisoners of war and subject them and their and posterity to perpetual ignorance and the oppressive toil of involuntary servitude without reward? In thy late contest with a powerful sister state, many of her political slaves who sought the lives of thy sons in the conflagration of their dwellings fell into thy custody by the chances of war. I have seen 1,400 of these at a single depot. All right, 1,400 large loaves of good bread and 1,400 pounds of excellent beef were daily spread before them. As many as could meet with opportunities were permitted to labor for the neighboring farmers and manufacturers for which they received a pecuniary equivalent in monthly stipends. 1,400 thousands of the sons of and daughters of thy neighbor Africa, so called, all right, they keep saying Africa, breathe and mourn on thy expanded bosom. The privileges of a vast proportion of these forlorn victims of sorrow and woe are reduced below the privileges of the ox, the horse, the hound, and various other domestic animals in respect to sustenance, toil, and severity of chastisement, if not quarters and raiments. Alright? As an aggregate people, they nor their ancestors ever disturbed thy repose with fire or sword, or the cannon's deathly roar. They are nevertheless virtually prisoners of war, not by a war in defense of human life, but generally by a hideous sacrilegious war waged among so-called African kings for the plunder of human souls, human flesh, blood, and bones, to be exchanged as articles of merchandise for contemptible gewgaws, implements of war, distilled spirits, tobacco, and etc. Alright, there we go. Alright, that's what I wanted to get to. Alright, so he said, how many was at a single spot? 1,400 of these at a single depot. Alright? Which could be like in one of these buildings, right? You could hold 1,400 people in there. Alright, we off of that book. Check that book out, man, if you want to get a little picture of what's going on. It's got a little graphicness to it. But, you know, those type of books, they give you the best insight of what was going on. Alright, we're going to run through a couple little articles real quick. Trying to get a feel of what was going on in these asylums, man. Alright. Hospital for the Negro Insane. Is this one I wanted to get? Hold on. Alright, this is talking about Crownsville. Alright. Crownsville in Maryland. Alright, for the Negro Insane. Alright. Yeah, what did it say? Let's read the first paragraph. To respond to a recent demand of the ACLU of Maryland and to the augment theories from disability incarcerated about the convergence of race, disability, and due process. or lack thereof. This essay analyzed the extent to which racism informed the creation of Maryland's Hospital for the Negro Insane, Crownsville Hospital. In light of our incredible, and sometimes reprehensible past, I locate this history within the rhetoric of making amends that is led by local activists who wish to hold the government accountable for institutionalized racism in the Jim Crow era. My work here is also allied with the Baltimore uprising of 2015, the Black Lives Matter movement. Crownsville Hospital opened in 1911, 22 miles due south of Baltimore, as the Maryland Hospital for the Negro Insane. The institution closed in 2004. Today, we can and do remember Crownsville as a frightening extension of the tale of the night doctors who allegedly kidnapped black people off the streets of Baltimore for research. Without a doubt, Crownsville embodied a Jim Crow racism aided and abetted by eugenics that would serve up inequitable consequences for African Americans. And in another vein, we remember Crownsville as a place of survival, even healing, that attempted to offer aid to people when services and community were scant and nearly impossible to access. Alright, so they was just kidnapping people up off the street, taking them in there and experimenting on them. Alright, Crownsville Hospital. I think I got an article on Crownsville too. Where's that? Hold on, let me find it. This it? Nah, but this right here is St. Elizabeth's. The center buildings at St. Elizabeth's. Look at that, man. Alright, all this for asylum for crazy people? You built all that. Okay. Doretha Dix, the 19th century reformer who fought for the facility, would have rolled over in her grave to see what St. Elizabeth's has become by the 1960s. She had observed the treatment of the mentally ill in jails and other kinds of alms. Alright, so she did, huh? She did? Is that what she did? Alright. Okay. Where the, let me see. I got it somewhere. Alright. Psychiatry in the wake. Racism in the asylum South. Alright. I think this is the one that kind of hit home for me. These attitudes continue to plague current approaches to healthcare so that many African Americans, so called, live every day in the wake of racism that shapes their physical and mental health. Right? Still experiencing it to this day, man, after the pandemic, right? Can't trust them, man. I'm just gonna run through these little articles real quick. I ain't gonna do too much more reading on it. But yeah, look at this. Is this an institution or a jail, man? Alright, this look like jail. What's the difference? You got stripes on with a number. Look at his face. Alright, now you know I'm from Virginia, so This one kind of hit home a little bit. Williamsburg. All right. The records from Eastern Lunatic Asylum in Williamsburg, Virginia, still operating at Eastern State Hospital, remain hidden in a storage closet and patient library of the hospital. So they got the records hidden now. All right. Established in 1773 as the first public institution for the mentally ill in the U.S., Virginia's Eastern Lunatic Asylum was initially a small institution that housed 300 patients. When John M. Galt became the superintendent in 1841, Governor starts her history as the asylum at this point because Galt took over at a time of reform in the care of mentally ill. He sought to bring new ideas to the way he ran the institution. These ideas quickly placed Galt at the margins of the American psychiatry, largely because of his attitudes toward race before the Civil War. Eastern Asylum employed free black and enslaved people as attendants and staff and admitted both black and white patients. Let me see if they say a little something on here real quick. Alright, this is what it looked like. Massive buildings. Alright, they say they built these just for asylums. Alright, so they say. In an 1848 report, Galt wrote that the African Americans would always be a minority of patients anyway, and that he saw no detriment to their intermingling. This attitude reflected the entwined lives of blacks and whites at that time, especially in settings of health and healing where there were small numbers of black patients. Uh, mm, all right. Conover's goals to show the ideas about race and slavery were central to the formation of American psychiatry. The existence of enslaved people as patients or as workers doesn't in itself tell us a great deal about how that process unfolded. To do that, we need to understand more about how psychiatry itself was evolving in the mid 1800s. And here, Gonover unpacks the contradictions in the therapeutic regimen at Eastern Asylum under Galt. The prevalent treatment practice in the more progressive institutions in Europe and the U.S. at that time was known as moral therapy, which stressed the importance of clean air and physical activity for recovery. It was only moral therapy for the so-called whites, man. It was jail for the so-called blacks. All right? It was experimentations going on. All right, this how they erased your memory, man. While Galt did not believe that the African American was equal to the white person in terms of intelligence or emotion, he did defend the work of his black staff, who he felt were just as capable of providing excellent care to patients. This brought him into direct conflict with other psychiatrists, in particular Thomas Kirkbride, a Pennsylvania physician at the vanguard of the movement to reform and modernize the psychiatric institution. Alright, Kirkbride's large and rambling architectural designs were based on segregation of patients by gender, race, and diagnostic category. He argued publicly with Galt that it was entirely suitable for black patients to be housed alongside whites. So Kirkbride was out here putting them in different wings. Alright, I guess that's why the buildings look like that. Alright, we're just gonna run through some pictures. We're just gonna look at some stuff. This is in Petersburg. Now, Petersburg ain't that far from me. Uh, look at the faces, man. Uh, they look sad. Yep. But I remember a long time ago, man. People used to say Petersburg is where all the crazy people was at. That's before I even knew about any of this stuff. But this right here is sad, man. All right, they got them out here building a road. Back in 1915, huh? Mm. All right. I'm just gonna skim through this little bit, this little article real quick. Mm. Mm. This idea that black patient was somehow less than human is also a central theme in Mag Segrest, in this book. All right. So they were considered less than humans. Yep. Oh, what's this? What's this? Oh. Whoa, this supposed to be a lunatic asylum? This. Okay. Sure is fancy for just a lunatic asylum. Atlanta, GA. Yeah, this is Atlanta. Yeah, we kind of get a sense of what's going on here. All right. I got a couple more little articles. Just gonna skim through them. Let me see. Let me get this one. Madness. All right. Just like the curse. Madness. Oh yeah, this the one on. This the one about Crownsville. All right, that was running all the way up until 2004. All right, and they in there experimenting on folk. It's been closed for 20 years. The signs outside read "Keep out" and "No trespassing." On one is scrawled a single word: "Help." Sad, man. In the asylum cemetery are buried 1,722 former patients, men, women, and children. The graves bear no names, just numbers. Some locals believe that ghosts haunt the grounds. What happened here was so abominable. That may well be the case. Yeah, they probably made a lot of. This looked like a daggone movie scene, man. I swear I seen a movie that looked like this. Uh, Let's get a little bit of what's going on here. Crownsville in Maryland. All right. The men who built it were black patients from other asylums in the region. So they made the patients built this building, and then they became patients. After setting the last stone, they were committed to Crownsville. After they put the last stone up and built it, all right, time to go in. This would lessen the cost of construction and at the same time be a benefit to the patients, Maryland state officials argued. In truth, it was slavery masquerading as therapy. Patients were fed rotten food. Hold on, let's zoom this in. Many had no beds and slept on the floors. The guards were bullies and beat patients so savagely that some died as a result. Children had to fend for themselves. Women were abused by the guards and by some male patients. All right, all this going down at Crownsville. And it just stopped. It just ended in 2004. Mm, uh, as Hilton recounts with sensationalism, Crownsville's patients were administered hydrotherapy, lobotomies, and electroshock therapy. They were also used as human guinea pigs for various drugs. With a little girl named Elsie Lax went through best captures the monstrosity of the place. Mm. So a little girl named Elsie, she was a deaf mute. She suffered from epilepsy and cerebral palsy. Doctors diagnosed her with idiocy. Idiocy. At 10, she was sent to Crownsville, where she became the subject of experiments. Dang, man. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, one was known as I can't say that, the pneumonissolography. Surgeons punctured Elsie's skull and siphoned all the fluid, protecting her brain. God gracious, man. They injected helium and took an x-ray of her skull. By removing the brain fluid, the procedure provided a high-resolution image of the brain. It also left permanent damage. Elsie vomited blood for months afterwards. She died at Crownsville at age 15. Oh my goodness, man. And they was running all the way up to 2004? What? Things started to get better at the asylum in the 1950s and 60s as African Americans joined the staff and advocated for more humane care practices. In 1964, in the wake of Civil Rights Act, which outlawed segregation, Crownsville started to let in white patients. So in 1964, they started letting white people in. Oh my goodness, man. All right, man. This is a madhouse for real, man. This is a madhouse for real. I think I got a little video on this with somebody talking about it. Yeah, we got a little video we can get in real quick. We about to wrap this one up. It's getting tragic. Let's get this video in real quick.
We're gonna come back to America and live next year. There. Mm. Right, I think I'm gonna get like 10 minutes of this. I can't take too much of this.
Were not treated with any dignity or respect at all. They were warehoused there. There was a lot of racist issues that were going on with those clients as well.
We know for a fact that whites look at blacks differently in terms of the medical field. So if you go through the history of Crownsville and you go through the medical journals and listen to how white doctors classify African Americans, overwhelmingly, they say that African Americans have mental deficiencies because they were not able to handle freedom after emancipation. That's ludicrous.
I remember walking through those doors. I was handcuffed. And they gave you like a bag lunch, you know. And then from that point, they put you in a sort of like jumpsuit, and they place you on a ward where it's like a big room where everybody else is at. And there was others there like me that just had been put in between a rock and a hard place, you know, basically drug addict mothers, or, you know, fathers was dead and didn't have no family. All they wanted to do was drug us up, to have us where they could do anything, say anything, treat us any kind of way. Some of them staff would punch you, kick you, you know, put you in that room just to put you in that room. It was sort of like we call it the black hole, you know, the pit. It was cold. You know, they had one that was just a metal door, 4 walls, and cold room. No padding, no nothing. At that time, it was devastating to me, because not knowing who my mother was, not knowing, you know, who my father really was, having my Aunt Maria and my grandmother was like my safe haven. And to not wake up and see them, or not be able to reach out to them, it crushed me.
Shock treatment was still being used at the hospital at that time. It was still considered to be a very good treatment. And even to today, it's making a resurgence for being considered good treatment for very, very severely psychotic, depressed patients. And yes, it was used then. I myself at least used it about, I would say, 6 times in my career there as a resident.
They would hook the electric things on you and put tapes on them, and then they'd hit the switch, and when they hit the switch, the patient would go, I mean, really, and then, of course, they'd turn it right off, and they'd do it about 3 or 4 times, and then they'd put him in a bed, and he'd come to, and it was hard on him, I'm sure. Once they got the shock, they would come, you know, very unstable. They would know nothing. But I don't think it helped.
On the day shift, they had a shock board, and the patients didn't want to take shock. And I said, well, do they have to take shock? And they be crying, I'll be crying, but yeah, they had an area set up for them with the bed and the electronic equipment and all of that. We had 3 people. I never held the head, but they do. One held the head, one held one arm, and one foot. And I always, held arm, and I was rubbing, petting always that arm. Screaming, they were like crying, resisting. They had a mouth guard, no, they couldn't yell or anything. And they were cooperative, but they didn't want to have it, but they didn't, You know, I was upset because like they didn't have a choice, and I had to participate in them getting a choice. You know.
When shock treatment was used, and I'm sure it was used in Crownsville very extensively, but I'm talking, I would think, 20s, 30s, 10s, 50s, maybe 40s. They would give 20, 30, 40 shock treatments, and the patients would end up with brain damage. That was another thing. At the moment, if a person is given 12 shock treatments, that is about the absolute upper limit. The first antipsychotic drug, Thorazine, was started in about the late 50s. And before that, they had basically sedatives, bromides, they had some benzodiazepines, sleeping pills. In fact, one of the most effective medications were narcotics. But when the laws changed about opium, then they couldn't use the narcotics anymore for that.
Dr. Addie Emo is an African. Dr. Addie Emo do not believe in giving people sedatives before he do any surgery or anything on anybody. I saw a woman pull her tongue out of her head.
All right, I think that's enough there. I think we get the picture of what's going on here. Hit the music. And this is still going on. And this was when it got better, they said. So imagine what it was like in the early 1900s or 1800s. All right. This is when it got better. I think I got a couple little more things here. Let's see. Oh yeah, we ain't even get to this book yet. All right. So this is a book called Medical Parthiate, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation. We're gonna get chapter 3 real quick. All right. To show you how they was just playing with stuff. All right. Chapter 3 is called Circus Africanus. All right. The popular display of black bodies. All right. Now we know this. They call them Africans. All right. Now these ones right here, I think some of them were from Africa. All right. But it starts by saying the Negro with us. And remember, the Negro is not African. All right. We already got that. The Negro is not African. But the Negro with us is not an actual physical being of flesh and bones and blood, but a hideous monster of the mind, ugly beyond all physical portraying, so utterly and ineffably monstrous as to frighten reason from its throne and justice from its balance and mercy from its hollow temple, and to blot out shame and perfidy and the eternal sympathies of nature, so far as these things have presence in the breast or being of American Republicans. No, sir, it is a constructive Negro, a John Roe and Richard Doe Negro that haunts with grim presence the precincts of this republic, shaking his gory locks over legislative halls and family prayers. His gory locks, huh? I'm gonna get think that was enough. That's all I want to get. I was gonna read this. All right, this talk about how they was taking them and putting them on display like a circus, man. All right, well, I think you get the point by now. What was going on? Let me see. What else I had on here? I had a whole bunch of stuff on here. One article I wanted to get. Yeah, here we go. Alright. I'm gonna get a few paragraphs off of this, and then we're gonna be close to wrapping it up. Alright, I'm gonna start right here. The presumptions of low risk of mental illness were fueled by census returns and treatment rates. Reports to asylums. The 1840 U.S. Census, for example, established disparities in rates of insanity and idiocy, from a high rate of 1 in 14 in Maine to a low rate of 1 in 4,310 in Louisiana. In comparison, the state of Pennsylvania and South Carolina had a high of 1 in 257 to a low of 1 in 2,477, respectively. After reviewing the returns, John C. Calhoun, Secretary of State from South Carolina, advanced the notion that science, the tabulation of returns, had demonstrated that the protected condition of blacks, so-called, would decrease their risk of becoming idiot or maniac. Moreover, others attributed these differences to their lack of engagement in daily routines of ordinary life and civic responsibilities. Following along the early decade, the 1850s returns found disparities in the rate of insanity, noting 1 in 1,290 for whites, 1 in 3,050 for free African Americans, and 1 in 11,014 for enslaved African Americans. Before 1861, African Americans were rarely admitted into Southern asylums. Before 1861, African Americans were rarely admitted into Southern asylums because they presumably exhibited milder forms of mental illness that justified lower treatment rates. These assumptions would not go unchallenged. I don't need to keep reading this, man. Alright. You get it, don't you? Alright. They used so-called calling people lunatics or maniacs or idiots, pretty much crazy, to take them into these asylums, man. All right, this is why on a lot of these pictures you don't even see nobody in the streets. All right, let's look at some of these mental asylum buildings. Lunatic hospitals. All right, this is in what is that? Massachusetts. All right, and look how massive it is. These are all supposed to be mental asylum buildings in the 1800s. All right, look at this. All this for a mental asylum, huh? I'm gonna run through it real quick. Let's see. Goodness. That's a lot of effort for a mental asylum. Look like castles. Definitely look like a castle. Massive. Horse and buggies out here, huh? Well, you know they ain't built this. Alright. Let's see. What else we got? Colored insane asylums. Yeah, these are pretty much the same pictures, ain't it? You see what's going on, right? Now they had some of these newcomers over here in them too. Dang, this is like a picture of the monsters. You know that show, The Monsters? What is going on here? It look like Frankenstein, man. What is this? They in there doing all types of operations. Man, I said color, man. You got all types of stuff going on here. Okay. So, we moving along. Alright. I had a lot of stuff pulled up. I think you get it by now. I'm not even gonna go through everything I had on here. Now let's look at Tartarian buildings in America. My keyboard not working? Okay, get the. Okay. That's cool. Look at this. Now these are Tartarian buildings in America. Alright. Also massive. What's this map of? Okay. Atlantis. What? Exotic map. Mexico up there. Sparta. Oh, that's interesting. Camelot. What? Turkey. Greece. Moscow. Egypt. Jerusalem. Wales. Moab. Dublin. This is interesting. Where does this map come from? China. Roma. England. They got everything in America. These are towns that actually exist. Okay. Alright, anyway, we're getting off track. Let's see. So, I think we get the picture of what was going on in these asylums, man. This has to deal with the curses of Deuteronomy 28. Alright. I think this was the main centers of destroying the mind. Alright. Now, I'm gonna get into some bonus because I'm pretty much done with the asylums. But I was listening to something and he was talking about Cain, Cain and Abel, and how Cain went to the land of Nod. All right, so I was checking out the land of Nod. After he murdered his brother Abel, he went to the land of Nod, which is east of Eden. All right, this is bonus drop right here. All right, so they got a little map up here. All right, when I checked out the map, I said, okay, the land of Nod, they got it right here, paradise. But then I noticed a cat is right next to it, and if you've been keeping up with the little Hidden Holy Land series I got, we just talked about this in part 5, right? A cat right next to Babylon. A cat. They got the mountains of Ararat down there where the ark was. Alright. So I said, oh, hold up. Paradise right next to a cat. Alright. Rama. We just talked about that, right? Rome, Rama. But then I had to go back to the map and look at it again. So it's like, it looks like the Hidden Holy Land series gonna go to part 6 because stuff just keeps on popping up and keeps connecting, man. It's not me doing this. I'm on looking for this. I haven't been looking for none of this stuff. It just be popping up. But yeah, we was just talking about a cat, right? A cat, Acadia, Arcadia. All right, the home of Pan, right? Greece. Just like we saw on that little map we just saw. But then I remember it is a place called Paradise right there. I remember talking about it, right? I said, ain't that something? Paradise? But look over here. All right, you got refuge. All right, the land of refuge right here, all the way to the east. All right. Now, this would be the land of Nod, right? Because, all right, you got paradise right next to the land of Nod. You got Enoch right there. Land of Nod is also called Susiana. But if you know about Cain, he was cursed to be a wanderer, right? Where is that? Let's see if I can get it in real time. He was cursed to be a wanderer. Oh yeah, I'm already on it. Yeah, I was looking at it. Where is that? Okay. Unto thee. Alright. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield. This was the curse given to Cain. Yield unto thee her strength, a fugitive. Alright. I shall be a fugitive. Alright. Fugitive. Alright. Fugitive. Which is the same thing as wanderer. Want to wander. Alright. Fugitive. So we just got it on the map. The land of refuge. Alright? And that would make perfect sense. Is that the land of Cain? Where is that? And is that where the Garden of Eden is supposed to be? I still don't think you can get to it. You can't get to the Garden of Eden, but I don't want to clear up, do it. Hold on. It's coming. But yeah, paradise right there. Right next to. Look, it got this same, look at this. This is just like the other map. Alright. Arcadia right there. Akkad. Paradise. And refuge, which would be the land of Nod. Or fugitive. Alright. They got Desperado. So yes, it's starting to come together. It's starting to make sense. Alright. So this is going to take us. Oh yeah. Go back to the map. Look up. When you go up. Alright. Paradise. You go straight up. You're going to get to a Griffo. A Griffo. Right? Griffo. Look at the picture. Okay? Now, that would make sense. Because that's the same thing as this, which is the flag of Grand Tartaria. Tartary. It's a griffin. Right? Alright? It is called a griffin. It's the same thing as on the map. Alright? It's the same symbolism. And look. It's all starting to come together, man. China and Tartary. Is this a coincidence that they both have the same map? Same flag? Alright, this is just bonus drop right now. We done with the silence, man. Alright, but nah, man. That's not a coincidence. And then look. Where is that? Hold up. Tartary flag. So this is what they have done. Alright, so this is where they got Tartary at nowadays. It's at the top. Alright. But they done moved it over here. And they calling this China. This is more evidence how they moved everything and pushed it over here, man. Alright, they got Tartary right there. But this is supposed to be China. Alright. But we got it right there on the David Rumsey. This is in America, man. Or so-called what you call Canada. Alright? They done pushed this all the way over here. Look. They done pushed it over here. So now, it's over here where they got Tartaria at. Where does it say Tartaria? It say Tartario. Tartaro. Alright, Tartaro. But you got the symbol of the flag right here in America, man. Alright, can you see that? Can you see what's going on? Alright. They done took everything and pushed it over. And it ain't no separation between China and America. All right. In older maps, we already got that. Ain't no separation. All right. This is all connected. All right. And it would make sense to call this China, seeing that we already established that this is Asia Major and China is over here. Greater China. All right. So that was interesting to me. This is gonna take us to part 6. We're gonna be talking about Tartary next. All right. But that's it for the asylums. That came to my mind. I just figured, hey man, I might as well just do a video on it. Most High just led me in that direction. Yeah, it's kind of random, but hey, I figured it was important because this is where you lost your mind in these asylums. All right, this was the madness. Where's that? So that you shall be mad for the sight of your eyes. Mm. Mm. Yeah. HaWaH shall smite you with madness. Alright? And you ended up in the mad houses. Yeah. So once again, it's coming to life. But I wouldn't be me if I didn't leave up out of here with a scripture. So we're going to go to Psalms 27. Wrap things up. I appreciate y'all rocking with me. If you still here right now, all right. Yeah, this is for the haters, cause we got haters, man. They done actually. I went back and looked at one of my old videos, and I don't know how they did it, but they put an ad on one of my videos, like on one of the sites I was looking at, and it's like it's a dirty ad, man. That's all I can say. The Triple X dirty ad, right? I'm like, man, how did that get on there? As I know, on nothing I've looked at, that has popped up. So that means somebody went in there and actually changed it and put that on there. So we got people hating in the background, but you know what? We're not worried about that, man. All right, and this is why. Psalms 27, verse 1. HaWaH is my light and my salvation. Dodge hijack. Whom shall I fear? HaWaH is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even my enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though a host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. One thing I have desired of HaWaH, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of HaWaH all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of HaWaH, and to inquire in his temple. For in the day of evil he shall hide me in his tent. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me up upon a rock. And now shall my head be lifted up above my enemies round about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto HaWaH. Hear, O HaWaH, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me, and answer me. When you said, seek ye my face, my heart said unto you, your face, HaWaH, will I seek. Hide not your face far from me. Put not your servant away in anger. You have been my help. Leave me not, neither forsake me, O HaWaH, of my salvation. When my father and my mother forsake me, then HaWaH will take me up. Teach me your way, O HaWaH, and lead me in a plain path because of my enemies. Deliver me not over unto the will of my enemies, for false witnesses are risen up against me, and such as breathe out cruelty. I had fainted unless I had believed to see the goodness of HaWaH in the land of the living. Wait on HaWaH. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on HaWaH. All right, Dawada, Ahab. All right, all praises, HaWaH. All right, catch y'all on the next one.